you're basically going to outsource every single little duty as much as possible. You want to be doing only what you, the dentist, can do legally. And so, in that situation, you're not going to be talking to Mrs. Jones for 20 minutes, just chumming it up.
And a lot of the patients have been here for literally decades, 30, 40 years.
A patient is waiting in the waiting room longer just because we're waiting on an assistant, when we can obviously get in there and just use this little mouthpiece and still get it done. I don't know, just having that mentality of, like, again, searching for the bottleneck and be like, how can I fix that pretty easily?
Welcome back, everyone, to another awesome episode of the Lifestyle Practice Podcast. I am your host, Dr. Derek Williams. I'm really excited for today's episode. I've got two of my favorite clients on the episode today. We've got Dr. Cole Simpson and Dr. Greg Vesta. How are you guys doing?
Doing great, Derek.
Pumped to be here, Derek. We're going to have some fun.
Yeah, I've been wanting to record a podcast with you guys. So I'm excited to make this happen. I appreciate you guys setting the time aside and being willing to do it. A little bit of an intro just from my perspective. I'll let Cole and Greg talk a little bit about themselves too. But in coaching, I love all of my clients, and I feel like I work with some of the most amazing dentists, and it's super gratifying, very fulfilling. I think 2 weeks ago, I just sent you guys a random message. I was driving and I was thinking about you guys, and I was just thinking, man, I'm so grateful for them and how hard they work and how much they've changed their practice and how well they're doing. And so I just, recorded a little voice memo and sent it to you. But anyway, for everyone listening, Cole and Greg are very intentional people, intentional dentists. They know what they want to get out of things, and it's been super fun for me to work with them because whenever we talk about certain things and about applying them and working on it, I know the next time that I'm going to hear from them that they're going to, hey, Derek, yeah, we worked on this. Hey, we've made progress here. Here's some obstacles and some hangups. And so it makes for a very fulfilling and productive relationship. So they're in a partnership together. So there's a lot of really cool context, I think, for people listening to take away from this and to learn, how to make the most of their own situation. So that being said, thank you, Cole and Greg, for being here and for your dedication to yourselves and your practice. Cole, I know you just had a baby number 3 in the last couple weeks. So let me kind of turn the mic over to you guys to talk a little bit about your own individual situations.
Yeah. So I just had baby number 3 2 weeks ago. So I got to meet Greg actually in dental school. We were classmates together. And we struck just a really good relationship within the first week of school. So it was really just a sweet thing that God had for us in that way. We ended up kind of halfway through dental school. We were on different floors for all our clinical stuff, so we didn't get to see each other much third and fourth year. But I ended up finding this practice in Boerne. It's actually my hometown. This was my dentist that were here for a long time. So what ended up happening is I contacted my dentist, and they were ready for an associate, and I was happy to jump on with them. And we eventually got to the point where they were ready to retire, and I was ready to keep going. And so I thought really hard about this because this office was obviously a 2-doctor practice. They had existed in a partnership for over 25 years. And I had a lot of good systems in place for a partnership. So I kind of knew that that's the route I needed to go. And my mind immediately went back to Greg and just the relationship that we had. I think we're going to get more into this later on, but as to why, we work well together, why we are good leaders together. But I called him one day and just basically asked him, hey, you're in Austin working. How's it going? And he was like, it's going pretty good, but I really want something thinking about more of a mom and pop shop, just private practice somewhere in the hill country. And I was like, well, it's kind of exactly why I'm calling you. So So that was really cool. But so, anyways, I'm very blessed. I'm back in my hometown, Boerne, working the same place that I grew up going to as a patient. Um, and I've been married for almost 7 years, and I got 3 kids under 3. So if you have anybody to feel sorry for, you can think about me every once in a while. No, it's been a lot of fun, and the third kid's been the best so far. So we're having a lot of fun.
That's awesome. Yeah, I remember when I sent you guys that message a couple of weeks ago. You sent me a picture of the baby and your kids all together, and like I'm just thinking that's what it's all about.
Yep.
That's I mean, we can talk about all this stuff with strategy and business growth and all this kind of stuff, but ultimately, when it comes down to it, like your family, I just don't, out of all the different things that you can kind of explore and experience in life, I don't think that it gets better than a family.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, Greg, tell us about you. So we kind of hear Cole. So Cole basically has this long-standing relationship with, the selling doc. The practice, understanding he's working in it and stuff like that. You were kind of like, I don't know, not necessarily thrown into it, but kind of pitched this idea. What did you think when Cole threw that out to you, and what was the process like for you in deciding if that's the direction you wanted to go?
Yeah, so like Cole touched on, after dental school, I was up in Austin working as an associate for a DSO practice, and for me, I had a really, really good experience as an associate. I used those couple years to kind of build confidence in diagnosis and treatment planning, and it was a really high volume kind of practice, and I was having a good time, and knew that I knew I wanted more. I knew I wanted to essentially buy my own practice in the next few years. That was my goal. But I wasn't really sure, what do I want to do? Solo ownership? Do I want a partner? I knew if I wanted a partner, it was going to have to be with someone really special. And so that was kind of the wheels that were turning at that point in my life couple years ago. And yeah, Cole texted me and one day and said, "Hey, how's it going?" We were catching up, and he said, "Well, I want to call you and just talk a little bit more about life and kind of where we're at." And he gave me a call, and like he said, he asked me about how dentistry was going and kind of what my goals were, and everything that all of my dreams were exactly what his opportunity was for me. And so he kind of offered me this opportunity, and I took about a week to kind of think about it, pray about it, talked with my fiance at the time about it, and that we just got married last month. So that's exciting. But yeah, I thought about it for a while and decided, if I'm going to go into a partnership, Cole is absolutely the guy to do it with. So it was pretty easy decision, just given the history of this practice and Cole as a person and as a friend and as a dentist. So pretty easy decision, but it definitely took a little while to make sure that it was right for me.
Yeah, that's great. I think, I mean, it's always interesting. I don't have personal experience in a partnership as far as a dental practice. I've worked with several different partners in their practices together, and it's fun to kind of like experience the different dynamics. And I will say that I think you two do an incredible job of complementing each other, complementing with an I and with an E, where we'll be on the call and we'll be talking about something, and you guys will be like, "Oh, well, Greg did this or Cole did this," and like, "Oh man, he's so good at this." And it's such a, and it's not a, I don't get the impression at all that it's like, "Oh, I'm trying to build him up." It's like, it's very organic. It's like this, you guys are just being you, and seeing the gold in each other. And anyway, it's a really cool relationship and partnership. So I'm really excited that you guys have been able to create that. I know that it's still early, and I'm sure you're going to go through things where you have to. I mean, like any kind of a partnership or marriage, like you're going to have to work through things. But out of all the people, I have a lot of confidence in you guys in being able to work through those things because of the good foundation that you've built. It's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had some. I mean, we were really blessed to have the two guys that we bought the practice from. They had run a really successful partnership for a long time, so we had a great, you know, outline, I guess, for how to do that. I mean, truly, this is one of the simplest sayings, but it means so much. And Greg and I told each other this a lot, even from the beginning. Just don't sweat the small stuff. I mean, if you got to have someone else that kind of defines small stuff pretty much the same way you do, and you kind of figure that out, as time goes on. But that's been huge because, I mean, we have a 50-50 partnership, but not every day is equal. Not everything is equal. Not every expense is equal. But we care about each other the exact same. And we know that, when given the opportunity to make things fair, like we will each choose the other person over ourselves. And that's just kind of just how it's just always been, almost without having to say it. And I mean, thankfully, we went to dental school together because if Greg would have said no, I have no idea what I would have done. I don't think I would have done a partnership, honestly, because it's just having somebody that at least the kind of person they are a little bit is much better. Because I mean, it's kind of like you just said, Derek. I mean, it is another marriage, and
Yeah.
you're buying in our case, we were buying a big practice together all at once, and I can't imagine doing that with somebody that I've maybe met two or three times or something like that. So really blessed in how all of that worked out for us.
So let's transition into talking a little bit more about that. Talk about the practice and kind of what your expectations were in the acquisition. Is a little bit different, Cole, with you having been in the practice, and Greg, you being kind of like introduced. You're going, so you're kind of going through like a few different things at the same time. Talk a little bit about the beginning transition, what that was like. What were your hopes in how things would go or turn out? What were your kind of priorities? And were there any hiccups or things that you didn't really expect?
I guess the things that I was hoping for, we have 10 staff members. There were 10 staff members already in the practice we were purchasing. A big hope was to honestly keep all of them. And we had the benefit of, I had been there for 2 years. And so I could have seen if there's anybody that, you know, maybe could have been replaced or anything like that. And over the course of those 2 years, I'm like, no, these are all keepers. This is a really good staff. It would mean a lot to our success to keep everybody on, and thankfully they did. We still have the exact same team that we started with. It hasn't even been a whole year yet. Like, it's been a super long time, but no one even tried to leave or anything like that during the transition. So that was a big deal, making sure that we instilled confidence in them. The two doctors that just left them had each been practicing over 30 years, and here's us, both of us, just a couple years out of school. So we want to make sure that that stayed the same. In addition, just looking for ways to increase productivity, whether it be upgrading our marketing or being more efficient in certain areas. Um, those are the big goals for transition, I would say, from my end.
Yeah, and just coming into this practice, obviously I didn't know the staff. I knew the owners by just a few visits with them, and I'd heard a lot about it through Cole, obviously. But there was a little bit of pressure on my end, just coming out from Austin and hardly knowing anyone in the practice, and but knowing just how successful the practice has been since the '60s. I mean, we would be the third generation of owners coming through this practice, and it was kind of a golden practice here in town. And a lot of the patients have been here for literally decades, 30, 40 years. And so coming in, I knew that, we didn't want a whole lot to change right off the bat. We knew that this was a great practice, but we really wanted to make it better, however we were going to do that. And we didn't want to come in guns a-blazing, this is my way or the highway, and these things need to change. We really didn't want as much as we didn't want the staff to feel that change, we really didn't want the patients to feel that. And so that was a big priority for us, was to come in and the patients come through the front door and see the same girls at the front desk and see the same hygienist and "Oh, you're my new dentist, and I hope you're here for a long time." That was our goal, and I think that we've been able to achieve that these last 7 months, and we're having a good time. Yeah, I think the
That's great.
transition was really smooth.
Yeah, yeah, I would agree. I mean, from my perspective, I think from my perspective, you guys are great leaders, and you have a great team, and that's not always the case. Um, it's interesting because in every acquisition, things are a little bit different. You know, there's certain cases where it's like you're almost like a dentist is almost buying like a practice that's a pseudo startup, and there's a ton of growth that has to take place, and in order to reach that growth there's a lot of radical changes that need to be made. And that wasn't the case in your guys' situation. You guys are purchasing a practice that's already productive and profitable. And there still were changes and things that you guys wanted to make, but it's such a different approach where we're having to be very strategic about it, and to try and keep the staff, a lot of the good culture, but continue to kind of like increase and improve the culture, but to find the lowest hanging fruit and kind of increase the productivity. And a big part of our focus in working together in the beginning was understanding and identifying bottlenecks. I feel like you guys have really kind of like tapped into that and understood that well. So I think it would be great for you to kind of explain your thoughts. What was your, initial understanding of bottlenecks? How did that change? And what were some of the bottlenecks in the practice that you were able to identify and to improve to be able to basically like raise the ceiling of the level of productivity of the practice?
Early on, you helped us realize, in a perfect world, the doctors are the bottlenecks, and our goal is for everybody to be sort of waiting on us if we were going to be the most productive. It didn't really help if we're waiting on the assistants or if we're waiting on the hygienists. That means our time's not being used in the most productive way. Um, so that was sort of our goal. Was we don't want anyone waiting on us, but if anyone's waiting on anyone, it's good to be waiting on the doctor for a few minutes. And so we realized, we've got three hygienists, and there were certain hours where Cole would, he'd be the one that was assigned the three patients in hygiene for recalls, and so he'd get slammed back to back to back with hygiene, and me too. And that was a huge bottleneck in the day because we'd be busy on our side of the schedule, and then we'd have to go do three periodic exams, and it would get us behind. It would get the hygienists behind for their next patients, and it really made the day feel a whole lot more chaotic. But it was a super easy fix. We just had the hygienist at the beginning of every day, just put which patients needed exams and which doctors were going to be doing those exams, and so we could kind of look at the schedule at the very beginning of the day and know exactly how our day was going to flow. And if we had some free time in our hour, we could just pop in and do a quick exam, and it made it so much easier. And really, nobody's waiting on us anymore. So that was a super quick, easy fix for that. And things like limited exams. I think the assistants setting that expectation to be a little quicker on the radiographs and finding the chief complaint and the medical and dental history. That's really helped. Kind of when we trim the fat at the beginning of those appointments, we can kind of pop in and do our quick exam and do some triage. And if we can do same day treatment, great. But if not, that's okay. So those are two kind of big bottlenecks, but really easy fixes. That's worked really well for us so far and just kind of helped our days go a whole lot smoother.
You have any thoughts to add, Cole, as far as your perspective in pushing and relieving bottlenecks?
One, and I know we've kind of gone back and forth with you on this, Derek, some, but man, you just get in there. You have two patients in your doctor rooms that you're kind of working on, and then you get a couple of buzzes right away for hygiene, and you're like, okay, I literally am being called four places at one time right now, and just trying your best to anticipate and see what you need to do. But obviously, it's super important about those hygiene checks is they might have real problems that need to be fixed, and that's going to put some more production to a day another day and get these patients taken care of. Derek, you've helped push us a lot because I think I used to just kind of take in the problems and think about them and just tell them, okay, well, we'll bring you back for a 30-minute consult, one day. Like just kind of let them talk and talk and talk during the periodic exam. Um, Whereas you've helped push us to be like, hey, let's kind of like get to the root of the problem. And even in well, something I've started doing is there's, 3 or 4 different things they want to address, like pretty quickly figure out the main thing that matters. Be like, hey, I can tell this is the most important thing to you. This is what we're gonna do next time. I'm gonna have them go ahead and schedule you for it. This cracked tooth or whatever next time. These other things that you're talking about don't seem as serious right now, but I'd be happy to talk to you more about it next time whenever we have more time. That way you kind of get something scheduled and you kind of get a consult at the same time instead of not accomplishing either. So that's been a big one of trying to do better on that front with periodic exams because that was something early in my practice that I was just horrible at, and especially on busier days. The busier the day, the worse I was at periodic exams and actually diagnosing and taking care of things. And that leads to the dips in your schedule for sure whenever you are never actually treatment planning anything going on. So I think that's been a pretty major one for me.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, I think everything that you guys are pointing out is really kind of hitting the nail on the head. In a good way to think of this is that in a perfect, ideal world, I mean, let's just picture a situation where, like, let's say you've got like 1,000 patients lined up out your door. And how can you maximize how much you can do as much as possible? I mean, you're going to be extremely limiting on what you do with the patients. Like in that kind of a situation, like you almost can think of like a third world country. Like you go and you're doing humanitarian dentistry, you're basically going to outsource every single little duty as much as possible. You want to be doing only what you, the dentist, can do legally. And so, in that situation, you're not going to be talking to Mrs. Jones for 20 minutes and just chumming it up. You're going to be basically just diagnose and then treatment plan, hand off, and then doing the treatment. And I'm not advocating that you shouldn't be building relationships with patients, but the point of it in this conversation with bottlenecks is to recognize that the closer, we're always kind of trying to find this line. We're trying to find this balance between, extreme productivity and, low productivity, and kind of find this balance where we can meet, where we can be having good relationships, building relationships with patients, but also using our staff to do those things as much as possible. Co-diagnosis, having like you're talking about in limited exams, having them, set everything up for you, talk through things with patients as much as possible, relieve any concerns or questions before you come in the room. That's going to make your time so much more productive and valuable, being able to jump to treatment. And so there's hundreds of different examples in a dental office. And so the principle behind it, the important part behind it, is being able to recognize those things. How often are you not able to see the next patient because you just don't have an assistant that has been able to turn over the room, or maybe you don't have an operatory. All of these different things are different constraints, and finding ways to kind of move those around or to widen those bottlenecks is you're going to see a raise in your ceiling as far as what you can do. And you guys have done that consistently. Like your daily production average has like very consistently trended upward from a practice that was already relatively productive. We've continued to push those boundaries. Any thoughts you guys want to add as I share that?
I thought of just like one other random one that like could actually apply to people today, especially like in bigger practices with multiple doctors. We have one of our assistants is out on maternity leave right now, so we're like pretty short, not just a little shorthanded, I would say. And Greg has led the charge and helped me in When we have, 4 patients and 3 assistants or something like that, but maybe Greg has another patient coming in that is just a quadrant of fillings or something like that, he's jumping in there with an isolite and just doing it all by himself. And things like that, just we obviously our assistant's going to come back and things like that won't matter anymore. But just that mentality of like, if that assistant or that patient is waiting in the waiting room longer just because we're waiting on an assistant, when we can obviously get in there and just use this little mouthpiece and still get it done. I don't know, just having that mentality of like, again, searching for the bottleneck and be like, how can I fix that pretty easily? You can't do that with every procedure, obviously, but when it's possible, I don't know. I just really admired that Greg was ready to jump in there and do stuff like that.
Yeah, that's great. Let's use that to kind of segue into part of what we did in your guys' situation is really kind of looking at screenshots of the schedule, picking things apart, and saying, okay, well, when this is laid out this way, where do you go? Like when you look at this, the way that the schedules looks right now, how do you visualize this actually taking place, and how can we kind of manipulate and kind of move that around to idealize that to your situation? Tell me kind of your thoughts on your end and what that's been like to go through that process.
Yeah, so essentially on the days that both of us are here, we've each got 2 rooms that were 2 chairs that we're working out of each. And we've got one column that's pretty much designated to high production treatment. So endo, crowns, difficult extractions, things like that. And we prioritize those. And then in our second column, um, it's the quick adjustments and deliveries and limited exams and things like that. And that second column is a lot of what our assistants take care of. And so we've really worked hard to train with the front office and the back office to understand how much time we're needed and where we're needed. They know that if we're doing a quadrant of fillings, we're in there for a while. Or if we're going to be there for a difficult extraction or endo or an implant, we're not going anywhere. And the front office has gotten really good to it sort of laying the schedule out and piecing it together kind of like a puzzle, to where as soon as we leave one room, we're going to the next room to either numb someone up or do a quick limited exam or cement a crown or whatever. And Derek, you've taught us a lot about provider time scheduling, and that's essentially what we just explained is knowing where we can be to where we're not going into a room and waiting 5 or 10 minutes to get anything done. We're just kind of bouncing around, and it doesn't feel hectic. It might sound hectic with you just bouncing around room to room to room all day, but it's really felt efficient. And I think having a staff who's got a ton of experience and who you can delegate all the tasks to that are legally, that's helped a ton. So having the front office and the back office on the same page and having a really skilled back office has helped a ton to sort of lay out this schedule in a way where we can just constantly be moving. It's been.
Yeah, I would just say off of that, really, it's almost like with our front desk, the doctor's going out, we're slowing down, they're retiring. It's almost like we gave them permission to like put as much in there as you can with like knowing, exactly how much time we're in the room for every single procedure. And they have just taken that and just run with it. They were already really good staff members. They didn't need a lot of pushing to do that and to figure out how to put every puzzle together. But I'd say a certain way to look at it too is like try and turn things in there, and whatever's not sticky, you always tell them like, hey, please never put those 2 kinds of appointments together again. But I found myself like a couple times, like starting a crown at the exact same time that in my second room they're starting a limited exam. I'm like, how I'm going to be prepping at the exact same time they're calling me over with all the information. It's like it's just amazing when it's like I go into that scenario, and then the assistants helping me out in room one, the assistant that's helping me out in room two are we all know that those 2 things are happening simultaneously, that we all just figure it out. And whether it's like I get them numb and then they finish up that limited exam quickly enough for me to do it before I start prepping, or or whatever. It just works out a lot, and it's really impressed me just with how Derek's pushed us to be able to go and look at. Because before I was like, no, if I'm doing a crown, like I can't be anywhere for at least 45 minutes into that appointment. And now it's just with things like that, it's like really thinking about your time and where you can be has been super useful and really maximize production.
Yeah, I love that. I love that idea, and it's a shift. It's a shift from just kind of going throughout the day and letting your staff tell you where you need to be, to then you taking charge and looking at the schedule and saying, okay, I'm going to be here first, and then I'll go here. Oh, and then probably by that time, they're going to be ready for me here. The more that you can kind of conceptualize that and think through those things, try and anticipate, and then also try and be flexible. Doing all those things together is going to, like you said, is just going to kind of raise the ceiling. It's just going to continue to increase how productive you can be throughout the day.
And kind of, playing off of maximizing our schedule, another thing that Derek helped us to do was really improve co-diagnosis. The hygienists were already, pretty good at this. They had already been trained on how to use little intraoral cameras and everything like that. But we ended up, Greg and I made a PowerPoint and just sat down in one of our staff meetings, and we showed them just clinical pictures of lots of different situations and said, hey, this is your patient. You just took this picture of them. What are you telling them? And we did that, just like 8 or 10 times on different things. And honestly, most of it is cracked teeth. The differentiation between, is it a filling or is it a crown? I mean, that's the main one that we're all, talking about and thinking about. And we just kind of came to the conclusion with our staff, just specifically about that situation. If they, don't really know if the doctor's going to say it's a crown or a big filling or something like that, for the hygienist to always kind of over diagnose. They're not really diagnosing, but for them to go ahead and prepare the patient, like, that's a pretty large break. Like, Dr. Simpson might want that to be a crown. Because that's just worked out really well, because then it prepares the patient. And if I walk in there and look at it and agree, then great, they're prepared for it. It always falls on their ears better the second time. Or if I come in there and say, this looks like a filling, we're going to just take care of it with that, and we can take care of it today too, or whatever. Then I also, look a little bit better, maybe, because, they knew how bad it could have been, potentially. And our hygienists really didn't push back on it too much, because we just kind of told them, they're never going to like walk away saying, oh, my hygienist is just always overdiagnosing. No, they always think like, oh, the doctor always wants to do a crown or this and that. So that interface has been really good for us since we talked about it. And we've also, within co-diagnosis, had them make sure that there's any chief complaints at the beginning of the prophy, because we want x-rays and pictures of whatever their problems are at the very beginning, because like we just talked about a second ago with the schedule, we might see a bottleneck and be like, hey, I need to go into the hygiene appointment like 20 minutes into that appointment rather than at the very end. So in case that happens, we already have at least the pictures and the x-rays of what needs to happen right off the bat. And that's been super signs that we do have to go in there early, because we know that we're going to do somewhere else later on.
Let me just echo that, because I think a lot of people listening may not catch that point that you made, that essentially what you're saying is that in order to optimize the hygiene schedule, what you have done is to make sure that it's a high priority for the hygienist to get x-rays, intraoral pictures, talk about treatment before they start their prophy, so that then that gives you wiggle room where you can kind of, they get all that done, and then you've got 30 minutes or whatever where you can go in at any point and know that they've already discussed that, versus like if the hygienist is doing the prophy first, and then after that, that's when they're taking the pictures and talking about possible treatment options, diagnosis, and stuff like that. Then, if you come in and during the prophy and ask, oh, can I pop in and do the exam? Well, they haven't done any of that. And so now something that may have only taken you 5 minutes is now going to take you 15 or 20 minutes, because you're going to have to do all the explaining that your hygienist could have done. So that's something that's so small and simple, but over the period of a day, a week, a year, that is a lot of production. That all adds up. So a lot of the changes that we're making, like I said at the beginning, you guys are in a situation where we're not completely, doing a 180 in your practice. We're continuing to optimize optimize this 5% here, 5% here, 3% here. And that all just adds on and compounds to really make the big differences.
Yeah, and it's funny how all of this ties together with being intentional with our scheduling and sort of being orchestrators of our own schedule and the flow of our own day and having a extremely well trained and positive, hardworking staff. Um, Again, back to the co-diagnosis. It's not We're not just talking about fillings and crowns. They're well trained on abfractions and incisal wear and occlusal wear and craze lines, and just they feel comfortable talking to patients about all that stuff too. So again, it's not just fillings and crowns. They were spending a lot of time, not just us, me and Cole, but the hygienist too, talking to him about the abfractions and really what causes that. A year ago they were just told that stop brushing too hard, but we know that there's other things that go into that, and so we talk about NTIs and night guards, and we can fill these in. We can, even if they're symptomatic or asymptomatic. We can fill these little areas in that have always kind of bothered you, you know, aesthetically, but you never really said anything about it. And so it's a lot of these little things have really just added up throughout the days and really helped fill our end of the schedule.
Yeah, that's great. I appreciate you guys being willing to kind of share and talk about that. Let's kind of zoom out and talk a little bit bigger picture. And I think one thing that's always super important in any type of business ownership is leadership. And I'd love for you guys to talk a little bit about your leadership style. How, what entering ownership, what was your expectation, and what has been different? How have you grown, and are you the type of leader that you thought you would be? Talk about that type of growth and what that journey has been like for you so far.
Yeah, we've really enjoyed talking about leadership with you, Derek. For a lot of reasons. I think that I was, from getting to be an associate in this practice for 2 years, seeing the leadership style of the two guys before us, I just always say I'm not that. They had a much more kind of old school, headstrong mentality, which I fully respected, and they were great leaders, and they made this team what they are. There's nothing wrong with it. I just didn't think that I was very good at that. I don't think that I would be a very good, I don't know, quote, headstrong leader. I wouldn't hit the mark like they did. I've always uh, hoped to be more of just kind of a humble and quieter leader. I'm not afraid to tell staff when they're doing something wrong or I need them to improve on something, but it's never going to be in a tone, and it's probably never going to be without me thinking about it for a little bit about how I like them to say it to make sure that they know that I really care about them whenever I do give them some instruction. And I don't know, Greg and I were just super drawn to Derek in this way, just because I've been listening to this podcast for, I don't know, a long time. Well, from the beginning of dental school. And I was always drawn to Derek and how he would talk about, his staff and how he was leading them. So I was like, man, that's kind of like how I want to, do it. And there's obviously this guy that's doing it super successfully. It's possible to not, just be headstrong, my way or the highway kind of leader of this business. The way that he asks questions of his staff, the way he really includes them and their opinions on everything, and he's blowing it out of the water. This is so amazing to see. Greg and I were super thankful for both of us to be on the same page of that leadership style, because Greg and I are very much the same way as Derek was. So it's been amazing to have just that affirmation in our coach, just leading that same exact way. And it's been sweet because our staff, I think they were a little worried about how we were going to leave because I think they kind of knew that I wasn't going to be that way, and things were going so well. Had been going so well with the old docs there. I think they kind of were like, oh, well, who's going to kick us in the butt, kind of. And over time, they've come to see that we're still rigid on things that we care about. We're not wish washy by any means. But we really care about their opinions, maybe more than happened before. And this way works too. And I think they feel, still feel valued, and they still feel like they're a part of the team with how we're doing things.
Yeah, and on that, I I went way back to 2009. I started working in an office as an assistant through college, and I got a really good experience as an assistant and how a good private practice works. I learned a lot of good things. I learned a lot of things that maybe I don't want to do one day when I am a dentist and a practice owner, and I was able to sort of double down on that as an associate, seeing the way that practice was running. And in both practices, they were highly successful, but there was a lot of turnover, and I think the turnover was a big part due to the leadership or maybe lack thereof. And it was a lot of that headstrong, and the assistants were and the hygienists were sort of afraid to come to the owner docs and talk to him about things. And I just knew that that's not really what I want. That's not my personality. And if ever I have the chance to own my own practice and sort of be the boss, that's not how I want to lead things. And again, going back to choosing a partner, I knew Cole's personality, and I knew how genuine he was and how caring he is and what sort of leader he's going to be. And it's just sort of been a really nice organic transition into all this. And I think that there's a lot of mutual respect. It's not unidirectional. They respect us just as much as we respect them. And I think that they feel really comfortable coming to us. We told them from day one, please come to us about anything, good, bad, ugly. We don't care. Just come to us and talk about it. We don't want to hold any grudges. If we have any issues, we'll come to you. And it's not personal. It's just, it's things that we want to talk about. And it definitely goes both ways every day. And it's just been a really, really good culture for us. So, yeah.
Yeah, I really appreciate those comments. I think you're right. I think that it's very prevalent in the world to when we think. I mean, I think when a lot of people think of a boss, of someone that's just like kicking butt and taking names, they don't think of somebody that's like, oh, how are you feeling today, Karen? Or they don't think of that. They think of somebody that's just like kind of ruthless. I even think of the book Relentless by Tim Grover, and that's kind of what comes across. And I love that book. I love that mentality. But at the same time, I also love loving. I love relationships with people. I sold my practice last year, and I still text and talk to several of my team members because my relationship with them was real. And I appreciated them. I still had I call it like a strict love. I still have expectations, and I still was very willing to pull people aside and say, hey, what's going on? Like, this is the bar, and you're below today. What's going on? Let's talk through this. How can I help you? What are the biggest challenges that you're facing right now? It is so possible. I think so many people just write it off as thinking, oh, it's not possible to be empathetic and loving and have high expectations for your team or of patients. And I completely disagree, because I've seen it. I've over and over again, and I love the type of culture that creates in a business. It creates a culture of respect across the board, appreciation for each other. I think it builds team unity and this synergy that you cannot create if you just have a kind of a ruthless my way or the highway mentality. So I love that you guys are doing that and building that in your office. I'm trying to remember. I think it was 2 coaching calls ago when you guys were kind of talking about some of the changes. And I said, you know, what's so cool is based on the things that you guys are telling me, I know that that you guys are being this. This is the culture that you're creating, and it's just happening. It's not that you're telling your team to do these things. It's that you are being the example of that. Your team is following you, based on it. And those are really cool moments where, you try and you put in the effort, you strategize and do all these things, but then you have some of those results that's like, oh, wow, okay, it's rubbing off. We're making a difference. We're making progress.
Yeah, it's been the sweetest thing because that was in the back of my mind a lot before. Of I'm not going to be that kind of leader, and that thing you said it best, Derek. Love is okay. I mean, like in a managerial way, just like it's okay to really care for the people that we're blessed with. Like we're very blessed to have these people to take care of them. Like Greg and I, like we love taking care of our people. I mean, we gave out some like kind of transition bonuses to a couple of the ones that really made our transition really good. And we looked at each other like, this is the best. Like, this is the best part of it all. And they were super like grateful and thankful for it. But even, I don't know, I just thought about this like really small example. We had a hygienist that had been at the office for 20 years, well before we were there. She's amazing. And she randomly asked us if she could change our hours from 8 to 5 to 7 to 4 because she just would really like to have that. And she asked in the sweetest, most like respectful way. Nobody else has those hours, but she just felt comfortable to do it. And she asked me first. I told her I was going to talk to Greg about it. And then we talked about it, and both of us were pretty quickly like, no, like that's just not going to be good for us, like just in general. And then we called her, back in the office like the next day or two. We said, hey, we really heard you. We understand how that would be better for you, but that just really would be better for the office overall. So thank you for feeling like you could come to us about it. But that's just going to be a no for now. Again, we understand it'd be better for you, but we can't do that right now. And just like, that's how I always envisioned having these conversations versus her coming to me at first and you just being, I kind of knew right when she asked me, the answer was no. I also want to talk to Greg about it first, but I always want to do that versus like, no, that's not a good idea. That doesn't ever sound good to me. I want them to know that she can always come back to me with another idea or ask if I could make her life better, with some different way. I'd love to. I'd love to take care of her, but that, stuff like that was easy to be like, no, not right now. So, yeah.
Love it. It's a great example. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
Any other big picture ideas or things that you guys have thought about that you want to share before we kind of wrap things up?
That's I mean, obviously, like we don't have there's not just a ton of partnerships on the podcast, so just sign it all in. Like, I don't know if there's anybody out there, really considering partnerships. I mean, there's an awful lot of things to consider, but is the person that's going to be your partner, the question you should be asking is the person that's going to be your partner, are they going to take care of your people like you are? I mean, that's just the biggest thing. Because I knew from day one that Greg was going to take care of the staff exactly how I would. I think that should be like at the highest point of the list for partnerships for sure. There's a lot of other things you got to make sure are good, but that should be very high. You can even have different leadership styles, I would say, but you got to make sure they're going to take care of your people just like you would.
Any other thoughts that you want to add, Greg, or share about your experiences thus far in ownership, coaching, any of the above?
Yeah, coming into ownership, we knew as soon as really before we signed on the dotted line for this practice, we had already reached out to you. We were confident that this deal was going to go through and that we were going to be successful, but we knew that there was going to be a huge learning curve in practice ownership and being a leader. And we just really felt like we'd connected with you over the years, listening to you for years, and just all the ideas through TLP. So like I said, we'd already reached out to you before this was even a thing. And we knew that there was going to be a lot of lessons along the way, a lot of hard lessons, and we were going to learn it eventually. But we knew if we had the support of someone like you, oh my gosh, was it going to make it so much better and so much richer and smoother? And I just, if you're an associate or if you're in school or if you have the goals of becoming an owner, this is, there's a cost to it, but it's truly priceless being able to work with someone like you and TLP. I mean, we had access to TLP Academy and we were able to watch that early on before we even started working with you. And that sort of laid a really good, strong foundation of what we were kind of getting ourselves into with you. And so, yeah, if you're listening to this and you're thinking about ownership, you just can't afford not to work with these guys. We're still learning every day. And Derek, your availability is just, it's incredible. It didn't matter what time of the day, what day, we can reach out to you and you're going to be there for us. And there's not been one time where we've come to you with any good or bad thing, and you haven't had just an incredible perspective on all of it. And we appreciate you and all you guys at TLP and what you do. And it's truly changed our experience from day one for the better. So it's just such an incredible experience.
Dude, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate you sharing that with me. I enjoy what I do. I love working with dentists. I love, I almost feel like I get to experience the growth of practice ownership that I felt myself, and the freedom and in being able to design my life. I feel like I get to kind of relive it over and over with clients. And like I shared at the very beginning, like it's been super fun working with both of you. We've made a lot of progress in half a year's time, and I'm really excited to see where you guys go with it. Not even just in the next year, but 5-10 years from now, to see where you're at. Because I think, based on the trajectory, I think you're just going to keep growing. You're going to keep having more freedom in your lifestyle. And so I'm really excited to see where you guys go and what you do with it. So thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you, Derek.
Yeah, forever thankful for TLP. It's been awesome.
Well, thank you. Thank you both again for being willing to come on and to share your perspectives. If anybody has questions, based on today, are you guys open to people reaching out? Is there a way that they can get in touch with you?
Absolutely. You can add me on Facebook, just Greg Vesta on Facebook, or feel free to email me, g.vesta90@gmail. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Yeah. And just share any more feedback on our experience.
Yep, same here. I'll probably answer my phone a little bit better than anything. Text me 210-204-0269. Would happy to talk to anybody considering coaching or just wants to know anything more about the partnership, anything like that.
Thanks a ton, guys. A lot of good stuff in this episode. A lot of growth and like little nuggets for everyone. So thank you everyone for listening and making this part of your day. As always, feel free to reach out to me as well. Derek, DEREK at thelifestylepractice.com. Keep crushing it, everyone. Don't let any of your ideas, your visions, don't let it go off the table. Keep everything on the table as far as what you can reach, because it's on the table and you can reach it. So take care, and we will talk to you next time.